What is up, my Lorcana Goons, and welcome back to the Lorcana Goons channel. My name is Kevin, and you're watching the Quest with a Guest podcast, the only show where you can lore for more. Normally we have Zach and I, but Zach's feeling under the weather because we just got back from DLC Seattle. But our guest this week is none other than the champion of DLC Seattle, Luke Wonderland Goodwin. He's going to sit down with us and tell us about his experience, his overall mentality when going on into the DLC, and we're going to go over some Set 6 cards so you can hear our opinions from a Lorcana Goon and a DLC champion on what we think is going to be really impactful for the Azurite C set that comes out very soon. He's a member of Team Labyrinth, an awesome TCG player, and he streams regularly pretty much Monday through Friday on Twitch. So be sure to follow Wonderland's Twitch stream. If you want to see what we think about Set 6 and about the competitive Lorcana scene, be sure to stay tuned to Lorcana Goons for more. What is up, my Lorcana Goons, and welcome back to the Lorcana Goons channel. This time we do not have Zach Stone. He's feeling a little under the weather as we return back from DLC Seattle, but our guest this week is the winner of DLC Seattle. You may know him as Wonderland from Team Labyrinth TCG. This is Luke Goodwin. I personally consider him a friend of mine now because I've seen him at multiple DLCs and we've been chopping it up online, and he just finished in first place of the DLC Seattle. Luke Wonderland, how are you feeling today?
Pretty good, pretty good. Still hasn't kicked in. Still doesn't feel like I've won. You know, it's just like,
well,
it's so intense.
it's gonna set in, especially when you start watching those replays of your streams and you really get to see yourself become a champion. But yeah, man, I really want to start off this video and say congrats. I know, like I said it in my Market Watch video on Monday. I went up to you, literally, I just stayed. I kept telling everybody, we'll leave right now. I just want to stay and dap up Wonderland. Like I just want to give him a fist bump and say congrats because I just feel like I need to, because I've literally been watching you since this second chapter when you were streaming on Pixelborn. And then obviously, like, we've gotten to know each other a little bit better over time. And every time I go to a DLC, I know that I have friends there that I can go up to and say hi and, you know, have a conversation with. And I consider you one of them. And to see somebody in the community that I know deserves it win, it made me feel good. And I can only imagine how it makes you and your team feel. So I do just want to say congrats, man. Totally deserved. You're such a great player, and you're probably one of my favorite streamers to watch because of how good a player you are, and because you put a hand cam on your Twitch streams. And that is so important. That is super important.
When I remember to turn it on. When I remember to turn it on.
Yeah, man. But I do want to just start off asking you, like, you do a lot of content creation with the Twitch streaming side, and now you're a DLC champion. How do you find time to do it all?
Oh, there's not enough time to do everything. There just really isn't. Right now, we're hanging out because my kid's at school. So that's how I have most of the time to do everything. And then my kid goes to bed around 8 or 9, and then I get to play some games internally to test if I wanted to. Or play Space Marine 2.
Nice. You heard it here, my Illumineers. Wonderland is a father. He's a full-time dad, a full-time Illumineer, and he has time to still stream content for us and take some championship titles home. What did your family say, if you don't mind me asking, when you came home as a Lorcana champion?
Well, my son was just happy I was back. I don't think he really understands exactly what that was. I mean, he did watch the ceremony, and he liked that, obviously. And my wife was just like, good job.
No, that's really cool, man. I don't have any kids. I've been with my girlfriend for years, and it took a while, I think, before she really started realizing, like, oh, this card game thing is extremely serious. Like, you know what I mean? It started off as like these trips, and you know, I would FaceTime her at the Airbnb at the tournaments, and now if I don't reply to her, she's like, oh, he's probably just in his rounds. You know what I mean? And it's an interesting experience to go through the motions. I know you've played card games in the past before. Is this like your first time being a champion of a card game, or like, how many times have you done this?
Well, it depends on the degree of champion. I've not won anything this high up, for sure. I've top 32'd a couple of GPs in Magic, basically. I've played in a few Pro Tours, but I did very poorly. So, but I mean, I've won states a few times. Like I'm a back-to-back state champion in Nebraska for Magic, like back in the day a few times. But no, nothing near this big. Like this is always the dream, you know. And I hit that dream when I got the invite to Continentals. I was just like, all right, like that was the main thing I wanted to get. And then the Mickey was on the line and getting that, and that's just like ecstatic. That's like life-changing money if I'm able to get anywhere near what I want to be able to get for that. Like especially living in Nebraska. In Nebraska, this Mickey's like 40K instead of 20K.
No,
Like
yeah, no, it makes sense, man. It makes sense. And I think it's really important to note that there is some type of value in playing and winning these tournaments because I see this conversation a lot with card game players. Like, there's not a lot of like pro TCG players in the sense where like you just play the game and you can like make a living. But obviously, people like you, you're doing it all. You're on Twitch, you're focusing on building your team, and then you're also winning these championships. And trying to balance that all, being able to like have some expected value at the end of it, it does help a lot. I think it is part of the journey, and it is kind of a little bit of a motivator. But like once you secured that Mickey, like how did you feel going into your top four matches? Your top eight and your top four. Like was the stress gone or was it still there?
it was just gone.
Oh, okay,
It was
nice.
just like at that point we like everyone I played with, we had like chatted a little bit, and basically all just been like, we're playing for clout at the moment. Like this is just for glory. And that's kind of cool. Like I liked that aspect of it. It takes a lot of the stress away. It gets you back to just playing the game. It's
Mhm.
like, yeah, you still want to win, but like it's just a relief getting that Mickey. Like the biggest prize there is gone, and after that it's just glory. And glory's great.
Mhm.
Glory's great for sure.
Of course,
Um,
of course. I would like to think that it does take a certain person to still want it after you get that Mickey. It probably does take a certain person to still want that glory. Do you know what I mean? Because there is a difference in like telling yourself, "I want top eight and I want to be a champion," right? And like you didn't let that stop you. I was watching. I was sitting there and we're sitting away. I was watching on my phone. I was watching you go from top eight to top four to the finals where you played it against Sean Pando, and it was Amber Steel against Green Steel, and oftentimes it feels like you're not favored in that matchup, right? How did you feel going into it? I obviously you have a bunch of experience. You saw his deck list. Were you feeling confident, or were you kind of like, oh, we'll see where this goes?
I was just like, ba-boom, let's go ba-boom. Like this is what we got to do. We just got to ba-boom that Cindy.
Yeah.
And I mean, it is not favored. Like I was initially planning on playing Amber Steel because I thought it had the edge up, and I was like, well, if I have a slight edge automatically, plus hopefully I'll play better than my opponents, like I'll use those to my advantage. But alas, Red Blue was I couldn't crack it. I could not crack how to beat it with Amber Steel and maintain like all the other win percentages against the field.
Yeah, yeah, that's probably the same thing. Like my biggest issue with playing a deck like Amber Steel is that deck feels like the one deck that actually has an unwinnable matchup, which is Red Blue. Obviously, it's not the case all the time because your opponent has to play perfectly and you can outplay them. But for the most part, that deck does feel like it has an unwinnable
Yes.
matchup. At least
I
at
mean,
least a more polarizing one.
even against Green Steel, it's barely palatable.
Mhm.
Like I got very lucky to beat Red Blue in the top 64, and then I felt I got pretty lucky to 1-1 them in the Swiss and almost 2-0. Like I just had like the person I played in the Swiss, I just had amazing opens, and in the top 64, I also just had like all the opens. The exact opposite of what happened in the finals. In the finals, I had not really good Diablo opens, but my opponent also had some medium-ish opens, except for game one. My opponent's game one was like really good.
Mhm.
I guess my Ursula in game three, to minimize how good my opponent's hand was. Like they had an amazing opening, but I had like the counter to that opening in a way. I had the Cove. They couldn't really interact with it. The Ursula to take the removal. Then I can play a character if I need to, and they no longer have removal. I know it's open. And then my friends were telling me they watched it and they were like, "Yeah, it was a tough choice if you take the whole new world or you take the removal because both of these are an issue." And then you took the removal, and his first draw was a second whole new world, and it was just like you took two cards from his hand. I'm just like, oh, I didn't even know that at the time. I mean, I guess I did see that two turns later because he discarded the whole new world and then played a whole new world,
Yeah.
but.
Yeah, and it's decisions like that, man. Like decisions like that that really do sway whether or not you become a champion or not, whether or not you make day two. And those decisions are hard to make. And I imagine that practicing and streaming as much as you do helps you make those decisions, right?
Yeah, it's just learning the play patterns, and Green Steel especially has a lot of the very same play patterns in the beginning that you need to do to win the game, and most of those revolve around Diablo. So you have to very aggressively mulligan for Diablo, and you don't ever keep a song unless you have both pieces of the Diablo, or if you really know what the matchup is, like it's game two and they're hyper aggro. It's like, all right, I'll probably keep one storm in my hand, especially if I'm going for the Diablo. Maybe I'll get lucky, hit the big Diablo and another one so I can shift sing, because that's like really what you want to be doing against these aggro decks. Even if it's a Daisy, like you can put two on it and then your Diablo can tag it. And then they draw you a card off of it. That's just
Yeah.
golden.
Yeah, no, yeah. I like that you mentioned that. Lorcana is a strategy game, right? And like, every now and then, like, I pull out my deck and I start doing solitaire hands. But then I have to tell myself and put myself into perspective of this is not how the game goes every time. Based on your matchup, you're gonna have to make specific lines of play. Just like you said, you just need any shift character against that like Daisy aggro deck, or maybe against you're playing against red or blue, you want to focus on certain other lines of play, or even like Amber Steel, like you were saying, you want to find that Baboom. Which, by the way, I like that you're playing Baboom. That's it's a very important card right now. I think it's an inkable fire the cannons. During my rounds of Swiss, I was looking at a lot of deck lists. On the Labyrinth Discord and on the 20 Lore Pro Discord, and obviously doing Lorcana Goons videos, and I'd realized that people were just teching so many things for Diablo, and there was just certain games where I would play against either Green Steel or Amber Steel, and I'd have certain options or certain lines where I could either, 'cause I'm playing Ruby Am, right? I go like Broom Snake, but instead I found myself just going really wide this tournament. Like I would always just play like as many one drops as I could, and I think it was because I realized people are not playing Grab Your Swords, people are not playing Tinkerbell as much, and but people were playing a lot of like Fire the Cannons, Baboom, and like little one shot characters. Man, how impactful are these tech choices in a deck like Emerald Steel, and in general, how impactful are tech choices in Lorcana, you think?
I think it's pretty important. And Fire the Cannons, I love it in the dock, the very aggressive dock list. We have four docks because then that one ink is super important. And if it's terrible, you're maxing on docks. You're like, whatever, dock, discard two, draw two. Like it's a tempo play. It's very affordable. And even in like the dock aggro decks worst matchups, like red blue, they have T-pos that you want to kill on curve or you want to banish on curve. Going Maleficent, turn two, playing a broom, and then hitting their Tipo so you can quest multiple times is just like super good. And then in the other style of decks that don't have docks running Babooms, it's inkable, so you can easily get rid of it. And I think these are reasons why Fire the Cannons is actually seen less play. Uh, Ruby Sapphire is just dominating, right? And people are like, oh, Green Steel's winning everything. And well, there's reasons, and that's mostly because it's a counterpick to everything that is trying to beat up on Ruby Sapphire. And you have Ruby Amethyst also like trying to beat up on Ruby Sapphire. And it's just like, well, we have a good matchup there. Like we want to Emerald Steel that. We want to take down all the hyper aggro decks and also have the ability to be aggressive and have some discard to maybe punish some Ruby Sapphire players. And the matchup, everyone is like, oh, Zan's crushing all these Ruby Sapphire players. Well, that's because no one expected Green Steel. Zan played this matchup. He knows what he needs to do to win. The previous mentality of there's two game plans against Emerald Steel is you either empty your hand with Fishbone Quill and then you just top deck bombs. That doesn't work against the current version of Emerald Steel. So Zan just like got to crush players with that. And it's still like I'm not for sure that's how every one of his games went. I did not bird and watch every match of his, but like that's how it felt it occurred. Because once the Ruby Sapphire players adapted and learned that, like, no, you have to just mulligan for Flaversham. Flaversham, like, if you can get an early Flaversham, you'll have too many cards for them to fully discard. You can board wipe them, and then you still have some more resources, continue to draw more cards, and the game is yours, basically. Like, I am not a fan of that matchup. It's possible I'm just playing it wrong. But, like, I don't like it. I'm also playing against Sailor, so he's probably better than the average Ruby Sapphire player. Um,
Hey,
so
it
it's
does
that
feel like a
hard.
hard matchup, though. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. I never that's that and Blue Steel or Sapphire Steel are the two decks I just did not want to play. And I got lucky and didn't have to play against Sky and my winning in to get make day two this time. So
Yeah, there was a lot of Sapphire Steel at this event. But we saw the overall meta breakdown, and like the top decks were Emerald Steel, Ruby Sapphire, and Ruby Amethyst as expected, and then it was like Amber Steel and Sapphire Steel, not too far off from each other. I think Sapphire Steel was a pretty good meta call for this event as well. I got blown out by it in Swiss. I just feel like that deck can high roll extremely, and against Steel decks, you're able to slap on cogs, right? But the meta's so fast lately. Like I feel like when you're dealing with like a hyper aggro format and you're dealing with like an emerald format as well, like you can't really afford to spend a lot of your early turns going fishbone, tipo, and then you have to wait a while before you drop a
yeah.
cogsworth. You know what I mean? So there are those drawbacks. I know you talked about matchups right now and how like some of the matchups feel polarizing, but how important are matchups in Lorcana? Like, do you think it's the end all be all? Obviously, I don't think so. But in your experience, like, you obviously had to run into your bad matchups. Tell me about how those matches
I
went.
Well, I definitely pick my deck based on meta choices a lot more than other people. I try not to just like there's a few different schools of theory of how to do it. Like you have Kendall and Sailor, who one would say one tricks, I would say just like capitalize on their experience. Like I know they can play other decks. Sailor got into play like I know Sailor because he played Amber Steel in set one. He always like chatted on my stream and would like participate in the 20 lore discord. Him and Derek both also played Amber Steel, right? So like I know he's not a one trick, but like he's very good at this deck and he has a lot of experience with it. So the extra edge he gets from playing that could outweigh the edge of the meta shifting to an unfavorable situation. Like he's able to maybe adapt his deck to the meta, where I am much more willing to just be like, well, I'm just not going to play this deck. Like this does not look like a meta I want to play this deck in. And unfortunately, for most people, and fortunately for me, it's like that is a privilege. I have enough teammates that if I need cards, I can mess like RMB and Xenulos. I think almost have a full set of every card, right? And Humble also does, and Humble doesn't play Steel, and so it's like, well, and I mostly play Steel, so like if I need cards for an event, I can get them. Um, but luckily, doing well at the first DLC, I was able to then acquire most of the cards I needed to play for everything.
Nice. Yeah,
But being able to,
Oh, go
oh
ahead.
yeah,
I like how you worded that. You did well the first DLC, and then you were able to use that to get the cards you needed. And it's really important to have friends in this community, man. When I started playing TCGs when I was in high school, and when you're in high school, you don't got money, you're like scrambling around trying
yeah,
to build like structure decks and stuff like that. But making friends was really how I got introduced to meta because people see like what the kind of player you are, no matter what deck you're playing. They see your decision making, and I had friends back then being like, "Hey, Kevin, why are you still playing this like silly deck?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to buy a meta deck. I think it's a waste of money." And they're like, "Dude, if you just played a meta deck, then you'd probably like the game a little bit more, right?" And then I had friends letting me borrow decks for tournaments, and then all of a sudden, like I'm playing like the meta tier one deck in Yu-Gi-Oh, but the cards aren't mine. I'm just borrowing my friend's deck because he can't play
yep,
this weekend. But that's how it starts, man. That's really how it starts. I think that's how you get the journey going. And I think it's like you said, it is a bit of a privilege, but I think it also comes with the experience of having people to play TCGs with. So huge shout out to all the friends in the community, and huge shout out to your
oh yeah.
team Labyrinth. Tell me about Team Labyrinth, man. How has that been going for you guys in the first year of Lorcana, and like how beneficial has that been for not just you but like every member?
Insanely. It's so insanely beneficial, especially once Pixelborn came shut down. Like so many people relied on Pixelborn for all their testing. Um, yeah,
This guy.
like I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I feel like I'm getting worse the farther away from Pixelborn shutdown has happened, and I'm just like riding the high of being good. And like with each new set, I'm getting worse because I when Pixelborn was out, I was playing hundreds and hundreds of games. Like each season, I would have almost over 1,000 matches. Like, but now I get maybe 10 games in on a stream, and so that's far less play. And I only really, if I'm playing Pixelborn Connect online against people who are not my teammates for internal testing, I'm streaming it. So that's exactly how much I'm playing. Which like drastically cuts down how much I would like to play. I mean, I can't just like relax in my bed and like I get a deck idea in bed, build the deck immediately, jam 2 games instead of sleeping, and then go to bed. Like I can't do that anymore. Which is, you got to wait for that official digital client. Come on.
Yeah, no, dude, I used to love that. I feel like well, I used to work a lot more than I do currently, but being as like occupied with like a day job and then other responsibilities, Pixelborn was goated, right? Like I could literally just get home at
Oh yeah.
11 p.m. and just be like, you know what? I'm not sleepy yet. I'm just gonna have a little bit of orange juice and stay up as long as I can and just grind Pixelborn games. And I think my favorite part of it though was also like seeing wacky decks or seeing cards and being like, maybe I could break this card. And you queue in for like 10 matches and you're like, okay, this card sucks. Like you get to like actually experience that kind of stuff with an online digital client. So yeah, you know, that'll be obviously be really great to have one. But since we don't have one, like what is your main means of play testing? Like obviously I've seen you on Pixelborn Connect, but like you said, you only get about like 10 games going throughout like an entire session as opposed to how it was before. So are you just like practicing with the Labyrinth team? Are you like using any other types of
Um,
services?
well, I do get to play with Sky occasionally. He'll come over and we'll play some games on stream. Otherwise, we play Discord games like in the Labyrinth. Discord will play on the over cams either in private channels or quite often just in the open lobby for anyone who's in the Discord to watch, and then do pickup games as well, which is beneficial for everyone. Like sometimes we don't have enough lab members ready to play games, and or we just don't have all the decks we want to play. We just want to like jam some random games, and then everyone who's there, like some of them get to play against us as well, and they need people to play against as well. So
Yeah, I have hopped on court like Discord when I get back from work and I'm in the Labyrinth, a Team Labyrinth Discord, and I have seen before when you guys are just streaming your games openly. And every now and then I'll just tune in muted just to kind of sit back and like have my dinner and just watch. And it's super informative, impactful, I think, for me as someone who just can't play all the time. And I said this to you in person, I'd say this to as many streamers as possible. Like streamers right now, like you do, like you're doing God's work in this community because like when I'm working or something, I could just watch your stream and literally learn about Lorcana while I'm handling my other responsibilities because I don't got time to play and I definitely don't have time to go to a LGS every week or something. And I think that's one of the biggest issues with card games. I love card games. I love the community. I just find it hard for me to find the time to go to locals and contribute. Like I didn't get to play any set championships for the Mirabelle prize card just because I'm working every weekend now, which again is a
no.
blessing. I'm very grateful that I'm able to work every weekend and doing stuff with card games now. But at the end of the day, like I would like a little bit more time to play in real life. Hopefully they add set champs on the weekdays or something like that, or hopefully they add more
Hmm.
tournaments too. We have a little bit of a downtime before continentals,
Oh yeah.
so although not until January. What do you have planned till then? Like obviously Azurite Sea is coming out, but I just feel like not that there's nothing to do, but like there's not that many big tournaments in my area. Are there any in your area that you're planning for?
I feel like you're a professional volleyball player just setting me up for the spike to talk about the ICL League and
There you
the
go.
ICL in general.
There you go. Let the people know,
I
man.
mean, we're trying to do that. The Illumineers Champions League. You're in it as well. The Goons have a team.
Yes, we
Um,
do.
we were going to be doing 16 teams, but I think we're at 18 teams. So we're going to do a full season and then probably a cut to the top 8 performing, and then do a small bracket, and then just cut to another season shortly after. A great way to showcase the new set 6 cards, because there's not really a lot of big events. So everyone's going to be looking at streamers, they're going to be looking at YouTube content creators, and then all the 1Ks going all over the place. France just had that huge tournament with 700 people. I can't wait for them to have I'm hoping they have another one soon. Like if
Mhm.
they're able to pull that off in the middle of all of this, like I assume they have multiple planned before continentals are occurring.
Yeah, I'm hoping. There's already been an announcement for like a triple case tournament in my area. Obviously, the
Ooh.
the what you just said, the Lumineers challenge that you're hosting, with Gaston and them. Super excited. So you guys need to go check that out. If you haven't seen the videos already, be sure to follow them on Twitter so you can keep updated on when they because you guys stream the matches live, right? At some point. So be sure to keep up with that.
Yeah.
Yep, and then join the Labyrinth TCG Twitter. Follow them on YouTube so you can keep up with that as well, guys. But yeah, there's a lot that the community gets to do in this time frame, and there is like a personal responsibility for us to be able to showcase this information. But I also feel like a lot of the tournament organizers do a lot. So huge shout out to the tournament organizers. I know every set that drops, there's always that Battle Bear tournament that happens, and that's like always the first information that we get. So I'm looking forward to that. Definitely looking forward to the set champs for Azurite Sea and to see the Europe
Oh
Continentals
yeah.
actually happens a month before the North American Continentals, right? Okay, so that's going to be a lot of interesting data as well. What do you have planned for Azurite Sea? Are there any cards that stand out to you so
Oh,
far? Have you been looking at them, or have you just been on set five mode?
I've been focused. I've been set 5. I see a card. I'm like, oh, that's pretty good, and then I just like push it out of my mind.
No, literally, like
Nope.
I was the same way. I was the same way up until like my as soon as I dropped around seven, I was like, okay, let me read all these set six cards.
What am I missing out on? Like,
Yeah, no, there's some pretty good ones. There's some pretty good ones. I don't know what you've read, but yet. But before we go on into that, I do want to ask, how do you think Emerald Steel is gonna fare after these next 2 weeks? Obviously, you haven't seen the rest of the cards, but like after looking through your list, it looks very reminiscent to like the list as Zan Syed one, but you are adding some extra spice
yeah.
in there, like the Dock and the Babooms. Do you think like you can play a list very similar to this going into Azurite Sea, or is it just gonna be something you have to respect differently?
Well, I mean, I copied Banible's list, who just played a modified version of Zan's list. I don't know exactly how much of it that he copied, like how much they had talked or not, if any. I definitely picked my list a little last second, but I played a lot of Green Steel, so like I already understood how to use a Diablo and how to mulligan and all of that. So it was just like the last few slots that really changed things up. The deck just has very good answers. So while it is definitely on everyone's radar again, and without a Bucky nerf to make everyone forget about it, I think people will build with discard in mind. And we've seen at least one big 6 drop that is a discard engine in Emerald that we'll probably talk about, I assume, because I'm a big fan of that enchanted art.
Yes, we will. We will get on into that. If anything, let's go ahead and take a look at some of these Azurite Sea cards and Wonderland, and I are going to give you just some brief opinions on what we think might be coming for Set 6. So if you want to hear what is catching our interest coming into this new set from a Lorcana Goon and a DLC champion, stay tuned to Lorcana Goons. We'll be right back. Okay, so we have some Azurite Sea cards here. These are some of the newest releases and newest announcements. So I just want to go over some cards that I don't know if you've seen, but I've for sure seen and kind of talk about them and really see where this meta is going. Because as of right now, Emerald still has won 2 DLCs. Some people would say it's the best deck. Personally, I think a lot of it is the pilot, so all credit to the pilots who win with these decks. But there's a lot happening with the new set. So let's just go ahead and start this off with this spicy card that I just saw yesterday called Submit to My Will. It's a 7-cost uninkable action for Emerald, since we're talking about discard stuff. It's a card that says each opponent discards all the cards in their hand. Very simple. Just be prepared, but for your opponent's hand. Do you think you play this in Emerald Steel?
Emerald Steel?
Or Emerald in general?
Unlikely. Emerald Sapphire?
Mm.
Yes. I'm pretty sure I saw you tweet about this as well. And I've had some internal chatter about this card as well. Very similar to yours, where it's just like playing this on turn 4. You can't hit this with any or with the Ursula twos. You can at least bare necessities it to counterplay it. So if this becomes a staple, I see bare necessities being a 4 of in most Amber Steel decks because you can't be hit by this. Like this, what are you going to have in play on turn 4 to win you the game once they make your hand discard? Because that's where you're at. You're at 3 ink if you're on the draw, 4 ink if you're on the play. it's going to be backbreaking when they do it. But it's hard to really just say this is going to do everything and warp the format, but it will be a deck at launch. You can't make a card that does this effect in a format that's full of ramp and expect people not to at least try to break it. And maybe this is what we need to push aggro in. Like maybe this card existing is too much for the ramp control decks that are trying to rely on Be Prepared and Sisus once your opponent overcommits. Because if they play this, it's game over. Similar to Diego's deck from Toronto. It's like that's how you beat Ruby Sapphire and Ruby Amethyst, is you just make them have no hand and you beat them down.
Yeah, definitely a scary card. When I read this, I didn't think it was real at first because it came out in a different language and I saw that translation and I had to pull it up on my iPhone just to confirm the translation. But yeah, like you said, I think this is gonna punish certain decks that have a bit of a more of a slow strategy. My immediate response is, well, if you play Hyper Aggro, you could just play Amethyst Chromacon, and then
Yep.
the hand situation isn't that big a deal anymore, right? So that's an interesting card for sure. I'm for sure gonna try and break it. I was already trying to play
Oh yeah.
blue-green before this card, and with this card now it just makes me want to play something like blue-green even more. When I was playing blue-green, I was playing Clarabelle, but I was playing Lucifer with Clarabelle. Because what ends up happening is you resolve Clarabelle, you draw a bunch of cards, and then the opponent's like, you know what? I'm just going to ink my hand away. Just get rid of my whole hand so you don't draw cards off Clarabelle. And then you play Lucifer, or you just discard the whole hand. So now you can do that with. Imagine drawing this off of Clarabelle. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and you already have that much ink.
I don't think it will be played with steel, but imagine an Emerald Steel deck that sings Whole New World and then plays that.
Oh, wow. That's disrespectful. I got 7 cards, you have 0
Now that's
cards.
disrespectful.
Yeah, I love
Like,
that. So, yeah, I love that. Whenever there's cards that you can really do stuff like that, that's how you know that they're at least worth looking into. You know what I mean? Speaking of steel, what do you think of this new Gansu? He's a 5 ink inkable, 4 strength, 3 willpower. That quest for 4. Now, when I first saw this, I thought, underwhelming, right? But the more I look at it, the more I look at this guy, the more I think, actually, you give resist on this dude, and he's really scary because he has 4 strength. You cannot get rid of him with Medusa. You have to have like Ice Block Medusa or like double Ice Block Brawl. 3 willpower, but right now we're in a meta where everybody's playing Storm and Baboom and Strength. People aren't really playing Smash, so I think this is a good card.
not yet. Not yet. They're not playing Smash.
Ah, yes, not yet.
Um, it's possible that Smash becomes more of a meta choice, especially with this existing. If this is the top end of some super aggressive pirate deck, I mean, because it is a captain. I mean, that's not in English, but I'm pretty sure that word right there is captain.
Yeah, that looked like a captain. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. He is a captain, bro. This will keep Piglet. This will keep Smee undamaged. That is so wild.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
like, it's possible. And Smash also takes down Diablo on a Cove. So it has playability.
Yep, definitely like that. So look into some cards like that. Maybe if you're considering trying to challenge this new meta. Ooh, I want to go over this card, White Rose, Jewel of the Garden. So this is a 3 cost inkable character, 3 strength, 3 willpower, and its ability says when you play this character, gain 1 lore.
Ooh.
Yeah, more.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's exactly, and it's a common. It's a common. I love Lorcana, by the way, because they make commons. They make cards that could have been like super rares and rares. They just make them commons. They say, you know what, everybody can play this card. I think this card's great.
8 goats. Eight
Exactly,
goats.
8 goats.
Um, I so it's possible that Flaversham didn't get nerfed because they knew the next set was just going to be full of aggressive cards, where the more aggressive it is, the worse Flaversham gets. Like if the turn you have to play Flaversham is actually the turn you have to answer a threat, well then like the next turn you're gonna have to answer 2 threats. So you better have some amazing answers in your deck. And they did print an interesting new answer that we might go over later. A few interesting answers. Some are a little expensive, some pretty aggressively cheap costed. But bouncing this with Fox or Snake just seems also disrespectful.
Yeah, man.
There's a lot of
This like
there's a lot of very powerful 2 drops. So playing this on turn 3 and then turn 4 snaking and another like double lore 2 to then like curve and then turn 5 play another snake or something.
Yeah, I like that. I like the ability to be able to bounce it and replay it. And you probably don't even have to play like 4 and 4. It's just a matter of you see it. But what's really good about this card is that it has a great effect and it just has good stats. 3-3-3 on turn 3 is just what you want to see sometimes to contest the
Yeah.
board. So there's absolutely no problem playing this on turn 3. At that point, you are potentially getting a character that can net you 2 lore for the even cost of 3-3-3, which I personally really like. This is a card I want to go over. Energy Blast. Not my favorite because of how expensive it is, but it is a 7 cost uninkable that says banish chosen character, draw a card. So it's Dragonfire with a draw. And comparing it to Dragonfire, it's 2 ink more. So I gotta ask you, do you think that extra 2 ink is worth justifying that extra draw card?
This should be a song.
Right, this should be a song. Okay, okay. It's in my opinion, probably won't see play. Not my favorite card. I think it should also be a song too.
I mean, I'd probably play it in limited, maybe, depending on the format. I like removal of any sorts in limited.
Yeah, no, I don't have a lot of experience in limited, so oftentimes, like when I look at cards, I tend to forget that you can play them in limited. I would like to assume that the Lorcana adds more into like the local limited scene eventually, making a lot of these cards a little bit better, right? But there's also side events in the DLCs for limited, so definitely cards to consider. Wreck-It Ralph Ham Hands, 6 cost, uninkable. 4/4, quest for 3. Whenever this character quests, you may banish chosen item or location to gain 2 lores. You can banish yours or your opponent's.
This card is dirty.
Yeah.
Like, I want to use my lanterns, and this is the type
Mm.
of card that doesn't let me maintain lanterns and punishes me for using lanterns, and I hate that. But at the
Uh,
same time, there's too many popsicles and fishbone quills in this world. So I like it. Sadly, I feel it's going to be played in a fishbone quill deck,
mm.
and that's the deck that plays it, and not. I'm not going to play that in Emerald Steel or Amber Steel, like whole new world decks. I don't think. Maybe it it could be a random one of in a scenario, like it could be the thing you need to, like, if there's a very punishing late game item. We also have the microbots, like if that becomes a thing, like uh, that's questing for 5 lore. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that microbot little package is crazy. I think the fact that he's an inkable makes it a little bit hard to splash in every deck, but
Oh
I
yeah.
do like the idea of playing this in a deck where you also play items or locations, kind of like you said, Fishbone Quill, or maybe even something like Lantern, because in case you're playing an opponent who doesn't have any items or locations in their deck, you can still generate some value
Yep.
off of that. Imagine you play your own Lantern, and then you play this like on turn 4 or 5 because you set up Lanterns, and next turn you quest, pop your lantern, you just gained 5 lore. That is so absurd. And I think in a deck like Amber Steel, which is already playing like Daisy Duck, Samiz, and all these
Oh
two
yeah.
lore questers, this is something that I think is going to be utilized in some of those more aggressive Amber Steel decks. This is an amazing card that we need to talk about. This is the new Shift Basil. He's going to be an enchanted rare. Shout out Lorcana Villain for revealing this card. 6 cost, inkable, 4 strength, 5 willpower, shift 4, quest for 2, and says during your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, you may pay 1 extra ink to have chosen opponent choose and discard a card.
Pretty good.
Pretty good, just pretty good. I
I
think,
mean, it's it's what we want, right?
yeah.
It does not have ward. So it is a solid card advantage. It itself is not card advantage. It's virtual card advantage, if that makes sense. Like you're getting them to lose cards. If you have a Prince John in play, which plays on curve with this, you can draw cards that way, I guess. It is interesting because I could see a world that you're on the draw and you shift this on turn 4 and then pass and they just dragonfire it. So most likely you're going to want to shift it on turn 5 so then you can play an ink and pay it to make them discard a card, and then like maybe deploy a John on 3 and then turn 4 a John and something like a 1 drop or something of the sorts, or play a Fire the Cannons if you need to answer an aggressive play. Um, the shift target costs 2, correct? The cheapest one?
Yes.
We have
Well, there's
Morph
actually
and
there's actually
support Basil.
there's a 1 drop support Basil for Sapphire,
Oh,
but it's for Sapphire though, so you'd have to like play like blue green if you really wanted to do it that way. But yeah, the other Emerald target I believe is a 3 drop. It was just announced in Azure Sea. He's a 3 strength. He's a 3 cost, 3 strength, 2 willpower Basil that has evasive indefinitely. So not too bad, but not my favorite. And then yeah, the other shift Basils are the 2 cost Basil, 2/2/2 with support, and it's a 1/2/1 with support, and then there's another, I think it's a 4/2/4 that quest for 2. So realistically, the targets, in my opinion, are mid. I think the only real shift target is Morph with this deck. I want to try this out with Sapphire. Because I feel like if I go like turn 2 Morph, turn 3 Fishbone Quill, and then I'm gonna have a large amount of ink to spend when I shift this character. And there's also a world where by the time that turn comes along and they pop my Morph, you can just hard play Basil on turn 6 because you've been Fishbone Quilling. And like you said, they have to answer it with the Dragonfire, because if they don't, I'm gonna be able to ink 1, 2, maybe even 3 times the next turn, and you're gonna ditch 3 cards out of your hand, which is kind of, I don't know, like reading it out loud and saying it out loud and like, on paper it sounds really good, but it's gonna be different when the format actually, when the format actually erupts. But this is a card that I think has very high potential.
It's more of a punish you later type card, gain card advantage, and like I like that aspect because the Bucky and the Prince John are kind of punishing very early. Because like if you play Medusa, or I always want to call Ursula Medusa. If you Ursula on turn 2 and then John sing Sudden Chill, that's early discard times 2, because like you've hit them twice, right? So you're like really hitting them early. Whereas this card more is for punishing all of the card draw cards, the decks that are doing that. And if you mix that with Sapphire, like you're saying, you're hitting them for 2 a turn. And then if you have a Prince John, it's like they're not going to have a hand for very long. But yeah, you said there was the 1-drop shift, like going turn 3 Prince John, turn 4 Prince John, 1-drop Basil, turn 5 shift, pay 1, draw 2 cards is like pretty good, but your Basil also has to survive. But as Clarabelle has shown, it does sometimes.
Oh yeah, going Fishbone into like a 1-drop Clarabelle on turn 4 so that you can shift and have no hand. I think it's like one of my favorite plays that I've done this past format, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be relevant next format with this Basil.
They're going to be in the same deck. It's going to be a Clarabelle Basil blue ramp. Like that is a solid engine.
Yes, if you guys want to see my current build without these cards, then follow the channel. Go join the Discord, because I'm already ready, man.
Check that.
I actually tried to play blue green on Friday at the DLC, and like I split like 5 rounds, and I was like, this is too much variance. It's a fun deck. I think Clarabelle Fishbone is unfair, by the way. Just want to let you guys know, Clarabelle plus Fishbone is actually unfair. Look at this new Simba, man. By the way, I want to stress, a lot of these cards were revealed to us at the DLC, so like I can only imagine, because you're busy, but a lot of us were just sitting around watching the stream, or even some of us were like out at a bar when some of these cards were dropping, and we're just like, oh my god, look at this Simba, everybody. Yeah, so Simba, 5 cost uninkable, 4/4 Pride Protector. He's a shift 3 and says at the end of your turn, if this character is exerted, you may ready your other characters. And he quests for 2. How do you feel about this card?
I wish I had this card in set 1.
Oh wow.
You like with Stitch, you like play 10 cards, they all come into play exerted, you draw a bunch of cards, and then in turn they all ready up, so you actually get a quest with them and they don't take them all down. Like I think that's just terrifying. Like the fact that it's a better bodyguard, right? Like it's actually protecting your other characters from challenges, because they can't, except for Cindy. That's the only issue, right? And we finally have a good shift Simba to use with our 2-drop bodyguard. The biggest downfall, obviously, is it's uninkable. Luckily, it's not Emerald, so it's pretty easy to build an Amber deck that can support this uninkable count. And it's also a Prince. We could finally see a Stitch Pride Lands deck that does something. As I was saying, this works pretty well with Stitch. And it dodges Medusa. It dodges Brawl, which is pretty nice. It being uninkable reminds me of Hook, though. And a lot of times I couldn't afford to run 4 of them. But this has a much more impactful ability, I feel, than just being a 5/5 on challenge and a 2/5 all of the other times.
Yeah, it also has, in my opinion, some, I guess, more available shift targets, because you can play the 2-drop Simba, like you said, and we have the 1-drop Simba and Steel. I'd imagine this goes into like an Amber Steel deck, because we do have that 1-drop Steel Simba. But that Pride Lands, that interaction, you just reminded me of that this is a hero and a prince, So yeah, you can utilize cards like Pride Lands and Rockstar Stitch and play a bunch of characters. And if you have enough ink, shift that Simba before your turn ends, and then you just ready them back. You know what? Maybe we didn't need this in set 1. Maybe we're fine having it in set 6 because, yeah, Ember Steel Whole New World, I think, in my opinion, was the best deck of set 1 because of that ability to go Rockstar Stitch and flood your characters. So I think it would have been a little bit too strong to have this. But okay, man, this is a card that I'm definitely looking forward to. I'm pretty sure Brendan DeCandio's happy because that guy just loves dominating with the Rockstar Pride Lands decks.
It also creates an interesting situation where we could play a deck with 8 small Simbas and 8 shift Simbas. If items do become huge and more locations become huge, the other shift Simba is good, and both of them seeing a whole new world.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And the other symbol is inkable, too. So realistically, the only uninkable ones are going to be this one. And yeah, if you don't know what that other shift symbol does, he pops an item or a location whenever you play him, and he's a shift 4, I believe. That card's really good. I think that people just weren't playing that card. I think because there's not that many good Simba targets. But if you're gonna make a deck that's revolved around like the concept of like utilizing Simba, then yeah, I definitely think that's definitely something worth looking into. Do we have some early game cards that are coming out that I think might have an impact in the meta? It's a new Moana card. It's a 1 strength. It's a 1 cost, 3 strength, 2 willpower character. She's a Dreamborn, hero, princess, and pirate. And the ability says this character can't challenge unless you have a captain character in play, like that Gantu. I like this card. It's an overstated character, and it's inkable. What do you think?
It's not bad. That's for sure. Not being... It really requires a lot of captains in play if you want to be challenging early, but that's not that hard to do. I mean, you have Piglet is already a really good captain. There's various captain hooks in various ink colors you could play. It seems like a very good shift target if we get a shiftable Moana that we want to play. And another nice thing is having the 3 strength is like it's probably trading with whatever is challenging it, and that's very good.
Yeah, that's a really good point, by the way. The shift Moana target. I didn't even think about that. Like I'm just looking at this card and I'm thinking, oh, this is a great statted. I can just keep questing with this, and my opponent has to challenge into it, right? But yeah, shifting a Moana on this, there's some pretty good Moana shift characters too, like some of the ones that work with locations. So that's a very good point, man. I didn't even think about the shift Moana targets because it's gonna be really hard to get rid of in the early game before you shift it. So definitely worth looking into. This is probably, in my opinion, going to be one of the most impactful cards of the set. This is the Islands I Pulled from the Sea. It's a 3 cost uninkable action that's a song that says search your deck for a location card, reveal that card to all players, put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. This card scares me, bro. We're getting into this like point of Lorcana where the game's going to speed up a lot.
Yeah, it's an interesting card. I think the thing that's scary about it is that it's a song. You can go turn 1 Cindy, turn 2 sing this, and then I'm pretty sure the new combo style location costs 2. We might talk about that. If it does cost, I think it costs 2 and 3 to move. So that's like on curve that then you get to play that, and I think some of the other cogs of the pieces might even cost 3 or 4 to like really get it going. I think it's like on turn 3 you just in time, and then you put in the Jim Hawkins, and I think you put the Sugarway Speedway into play, and you exert it to move the Jim Hawkins to the other one. You gain 3 lore, draw 3 cards. Like it's kind of a magical Christmas land, but like maybe once we get a location similar to Sugar Speedway that we don't need it, or maybe Speedway could just be busted. And then we have Tuk Tuk, which also like enables versions of the combo like really neatly. And it's a tutor. And locations can be terrifying. This is the type of card that allows you to play like if there's one solid location you always want to be playing, say it be library or castle, you get to jam those, and then this allows you to play 1 or 2 silver bullet ones. Like you could play a single mine if you're in Ruby Steel, and then you could grab that mine and use it as removal. But you don't always want it, right? Because you don't have all the knights necessarily. But if you have the knight and then you have this, you could do that. This allows you to play just one of the amber location to draw cards. if maybe you have a different location that is much more important, maybe you're maximizing on RLS legacy, tutors are powerful. We already have seen one in the last set that was a slow tutor, where it puts it on top of your library or deck, sorry. And that's actually a benefit because of Bruno, right? Like, so it's kind of neat that they even were like, well, we want this tutor to impact with cards in this way instead of just being like cantrip, just powerful card. I do like it. I like the card design area they're going into with it.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, you said tutor, right? That's a reference to Magic.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I forgot that that was a magic term.
No,
Tutoring, because the first effect that you search your deck for a card was called Demonic Tutor, and it just lets you search for any card. So basically, at that point, everything's kind of referred to as a tutor, and then they started making cards, and they just add tutor in the name. So basically, if it had tutor in the name, it would search your library for something.
oh, they actually added the word tutor in the name for the Magic cards?
Like, so there's like demonic tutor, vampiric tutor, mystical tutor,
Oh,
enlightened tutor,
that's really cool. Yeah,
a whole bunch. Yeah.
I've played Magic, but I don't know the lore like that. So like, and I've heard this term before, and I just kind of, context clues. I'm like, oh, that's the term for the search thing, but I didn't know it was like literally they added that term to the cards that were searchers. That's really cool. I like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, just like you were saying, it's introducing a very interesting mechanic to Lorcana, because you're able to strategize like that, man. Like right now, currently, people are playing, let's say Ruby M locations. They're playing around four castle, 2 to 3 library, right? A lot of it is because you want to see it when you need to see it. Maybe there's a world where you cut those ratios down because you're playing this card, because you get to search it whenever you need. Or imagine against those like really like simplified game states where you're using a deck like Ruby Amethyst, and you and your opponent are trading card after card. If you're able to play Islands I Pulled from the Sea and you have enough ink to play that castle on the turn where there's no characters, it's like having more copies of castle in your deck when you need it. That could be extremely impactful. I'm already thinking of just playing this in current Ruby Am, because you can go turn 3 Sisu, turn 4 sing this with Sisu, grab a library, move Sisu to the library. That just sounds already very
And
good.
the problem is when you have no characters in play, you go to turn 4 and you have to manually play this to get a castle so you have ink. And you
Uh,
ink the castle and pass.
oh
I
yeah.
know this is gonna happen and it's gonna feel so bad.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. This being an uninkable card, it does make it so you can't just abuse it, and that's what I really love about Lorcana. They make you choose what good cards you're going to play in your deck. Because this is a great card. If this was an inkable card, it's probably you play 4 of them automatically. But since this is uninkable, you're gonna have to pick and choose like how you use cards like this. And like you said, there might be scenarios where you're just singing to grab some ink from your deck, which again might not be too bad, right? It's a card
That's
that says
yeah.
add an inkable card. Not too terrible. Sometimes that just might be what you need. This card right here, this was revealed to us at the DLC. I thought it was pretty cool because we're watching feature matches and they just put this up on the screen. This is called Twin Fire. It's a 2-cost uninkable action that says deal 2 damage to chosen character. Then you may choose and discard a character to deal 2 damage to another character. How do you feel about this?
It's discard any card.
Oh, discard any card. Yeah, yeah. So you don't have to discard it. Okay, so you can just discard
So
any card.
I like this for multiple reasons. One, I play dock decks, and you want to empty your hand quick, and this helps facilitate that in a positive manner. You're paying 2 to take out 2 characters, or weaken 2, so then your other character can challenge one. Like hitting a Diablo and a Cinderella with this, or double Diablo. Oh, just like amazing. And it does have some downsides. If they have a Prince John in play, you don't really want to discard a card to deal more. But alas, I mean, there's going to be counterplay to it, and who knows? Maybe we will eventually get a way to discard a gigantic thing and put it into play.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the return characters to play have been very restrictive to prevent that type of gameplay, so that probably won't happen. But we're going to get something that rewards us for discarding cards. I think we have Sheriff right now, which would make this deal 5 instead of 4.
Mm-hmm.
And so that could be impactful as well.
Yeah, there's also those like neat cards like Kristoff that you play. They let you play them earlier if you have like certain cards in your discard pile, like a bunch of songs or something. So
Oh, that's right.
there's a world where you just discard your songs, so you can, or you play like Chippendale and stuff, so you mill and discard your songs, and you just slap Kristoff or something. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting strategies you could do with this, man. And one of the things I want to point out is that it says deal 2 damage, then you may choose and discard. So there's also a world where, like you said, that Prince John scenario where you don't have fire the cannons, you don't have Baboon, but you have this card, and you decide, you know what, I just need to shoot that Diablo, and I don't need to discard anything. So that's also very interesting. It's not like a mandatory effect to do the extra damage, so that itself offers a lot of like utility in that decision making. So I think that's pretty cool. That could definitely go a long way. This is an interesting location. It's called Owl's Island Hidden Entrance. Let me get the actual text here. This has two abilities. It's a 3-cost uninkable, 1 move power, 6 willpower. That says teamwork. For each character at this location, the first action you take each turn cost 1 less. So kind of nice. If you have 3 characters there, that means I can play friends on the other side for free. That's a pot of greed where I don't have to pay anything. Then you have another ability that says each time you take the second action of your turn, gain 3 lore. So if I use 2 friends on the other side, I'm drawing 4 and gaining 3 lore, buddy. I think this is good. I don't know. Something about this just sounds like broken, right?
I mean, I'm gonna try to rebuild Action Jackson again for sure. Like play 2 actions, draw some cards from my airfoils, gain some lore,
Oh
move
yeah.
characters, do it for free. Like make your swords cost way less against the aggressive decks if you need to. But this does cost 3, and it does have a move cost. I don't think I'll be playing 4. I think I'm gonna start off with like 2. I think the teamwork part of it is going to be hard to fulfill if we're trying to do the second part. Like, I think the teamwork part is something that you're going to do on turn like 6 or 7. After you've already kind of stabilized, you're going to have an Ursula 2 and Ursula 3 in play. Maybe a Prince John if that's like if you're trying to play discard actions. Maybe an Action Jackson himself, Pete, with Ward, so they can't deal with it. And then once you like get multiple characters on it, then you're like really going off. But gaining 3 lore in hits, like so you can play it and then gain 3 lore, is pretty big, I think. You just have to make sure you play it before your second action, obviously.
Yeah, no, yeah, I like the ability to gain that 3 lore. It's just lore burst. A lore burst in general, I think is pretty strong in this game. I think that that's the reason. There's a reason why that Ruby Amethyst aggro deck did so well at the DLC Seattle. Obviously, all credit to the pirate of the Lux team, the pilot of the from the Lux team for playing that deck. But yeah, the ability to burst lore in Lorcana is something that should not be underestimated. So whenever I see cards that allow you to do that, I always try and think of some spice. So looking forward to see your action Jackson deck coming into fruition soon. This Maui is one of the few Ruby cards that I think is going to become a staple. 6-cost inkable Maui, 7 strength, 5 willpower. Wow, this guy really costs 6. I thought it was 7. So he has evasive.
I thought he
Uh,
was uninkable. I thought he was uninkable. I didn't realize he's inkable.
no, this card is just over. This card has everything good about it, right? So it's a Storyborn hero deity, inkable 6-cost, evasive. Whenever this character challenges another character, you may return an action card from your discard to your hand. Then, whenever you play an action, you can gain 1 lore. So it's a handful of great stats on this guy, dude. 3 good effects: evasive, get an action, and gain a lore when you play an action. And it only costs 1 more than the regular Maui. I don't know. This could have been an
It
uninkable, and it would have been just as good.
it feels like 7 drop Jafar.
7 drop Jafar. Oh, the evasive one.
Yes, this is what this feels like to me. An insane card that is basically a must answer that will probably win you a game if it's not answered, but is expensive, hard to constantly use, and like if they answer it, like you could be all on that. If they don't have to quest, right? They can wait a turn. So are you going to play Pinocchio effects to get this? That's going to, like, what are you going to return to your hand? Probably friends or be prepared. You said you were like, oh, I thought it cost 7, as you're happy it cost 6. It might be better as a 7 drop to sing a Be Prepared than later, but maybe not. It's good. And I like the fact I like these types of cards that are very powerful, they're more expensive, and they take play as well. It just doesn't win the game immediately.
Mhm.
It takes a few more steps to do things. Similar to Tamatoa, it does not instantly win the game, but if left unchecked, it will. And unlike Tamatoa, this is much easier to answer.
Yeah, definitely a little bit easier to answer. I like that it has 7 strength. It'll contest most locations. But yeah, it is a little bit slower than some of the other power cards. But just like you said, you are gonna have to utilize strategies around this. I like the idea of using Pinocchio. Or even playing. What I like about this card is that it makes me feel like I can play like certain like one ofs in the deck. Like I'll play like one Dragonfire because I'll tell myself like I'll grab it again back later with Maui or something. So there is that potential, and then that little lore
Oh yeah.
burst, just gaining one lore for no reason every time you play an action. That
I
seems a little
love
unfair.
I love the toolbox methods. Like whenever I play an Emerald deck with Lady Tremaine in it to buy back actions or do it again. It's like, oh, I can afford to run 1 grab your swords or 2 grab your swords instead of 4 because I can just play the do it again, and that counts as an extra copy of all of them.
Yeah, yep. I've always really appreciated that concept or cards that do that because it's kind of like revive almost is almost there because it's kind of like playing like a fifth or sixth copy of your 5 cost drop characters, or if you're discarding them maybe with that one card, then you could use a card like revive and to like supplement the copies, I guess. This is a new ramp card, Sail the Azurite Sea. A lot of people are overhyping this card. I think it's pretty good. I don't know how great it's going to
Oh
be
yeah.
though. 2 ink inkable card that says this turn you may put an additional card from your hand into your inkwell face down. Draw a card.
I think what's a lot of people are not realizing. So it's one of the play patterns that the Sapphire ramp decks have is like Popsicle, 2 cost ramp, Flaversham. And that's very powerful. Another play pattern they have is turn 2 ramp, turn 3 they ramp again with how far I'll go, or they play like Grammatala and then sing the how far I'll go the next turn to try to like ramp up to 7 and 6 by turn 5 or 4. Because then on turn 3 you ramp again, and then on turn 4 you can be prepared. Having 12 2 cost ramps gives you another alternative where you're committing the ramp as well as maybe playing something else. Playing 12 2-drop ramps lets you go turn 2 ramp, turn 3 ramp, and visions to grab the card you're going to play the next turn that you have 6/7 ink on turn 4. So you play the 6, 7 cost, 6 cost end game cards. Hey, look, this is a card you can return with Maui that you're playing on turn 4, that then challenging their aggressive start on turn 5 and just drawing another card. Or on turn 5, you're like, oh, you thought I was going to get this? I'm going to play a Dragonfire there, and then challenge that, rebuy the Dragonfire to take down your next character you play. And it's just like, oh my goodness. Oh, you were trying to make me discard your hand by ramping into that 6-drop Basil? Shame if someone Dragonfired it. Like, just having so much ramp so early is so good.
What I'm hearing is collect your Dragonfires, my goons. No, but yeah, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying though, because I heard it from a lot of blue red players that going from playing 4 1 jump to 4 1 jump for Tipo in the same deck, that gives you eight cards. 8 cards in your entire deck that let you ramp from that 2 to 4 ink on that turn too. So that made the deck way more consistent. I personally feel like that's the reason why red blue was able to shine so strong this format. That extra just the boosting consistency. Even if you're playing a ratio of like 4 Tipo, 2 Fishbone, you're still playing 2 more of that 2 cost ramp than you were last format. And now, like you just said, we have a third option. That's potentially 12 cards to ramp to turn like 3 or 4. Or even like you were saying, you play something
And
like Fishbone, or maybe you can play this Pleekly instead, which is another ramp card. This when you play this character, put chosen character of yours into your inkwell face down and exerted. He's mandatory, so yes, on turn 3, if you play him by himself, you have to ink himself face down. But outside of that, it has a really good stats: 3 cost, 3 strength, and 4 willpower.
yeah, and it gives you something to do with the Tipo you played on turn 2. You
Hmm.
get a quest with it, or sing 1 jump ahead and then play this. Just a 3 cost inkable ramp is not like insane, but not bad. And you'll love it against the like aggressive decks. Challenge your Tipo into something, then put it down, and then have this to take down a Daisy maybe that you put a damage on with the Tipo. It gives you more cards to put into your hand off of a Daisy if they're being aggressive.
I do want to mention that the Sail to the Azurite Sea card, that ability does not let you ink uninkable cards. It's written like Bell, where you can
Yeah,
ink an extra time, so you have to ink an inkable card. Um,
that is a drawback. Like I think a lot of people are going to make a drastic mistake of playing that card instead of inking it when they're light on inkables. That could
mm,
be a big mistake. I do like to talk about the seed for just a little bit more. I like that it's an action because now Sapphire Ruby could play Robin Hood with like more ramps. So you have like 8 2-cost ramps that are actions, and then you have Let It Go, you have Dragonfire, you have Pirate's Life, and then who knows what other new things like and anything that could create a new archetype. I'm all about.
yeah, I think it opens up a lot of doors for sure. It opens up a lot of doors to be able to play Sapphire in different decks now, because the ability to draw a card also is really nice because you're replacing that it's replacing itself. And one of the issues with Sapphire currently is if you're using cards like Tipo or Fishbone Quill, you're just losing a lot of hand advantage, and in a discard format, it's not something you want to be doing all the time. So I think having, I guess, different alternatives on how you utilize the way you ramp your ink is really important in Lorcana. And like you said, there's gonna be misplays. There's gonna be people who misplay immediately and they try to use the card and ink in an inkable card, not realizing I probably should have just inked this turn. And so maybe there's merit to not replacing that card with a card like Tipo, depending on your strategy though. Because if you are playing like, let's say, a Sapphire deck that doesn't suffer from that like high uninkable count, maybe you just don't need Tipo. You just play this card and you can ink twice, which is really nice.
Tipo is a trigger when it comes in. I'm pretty sure if you have this in play, you can play Tipo, draw a card, and then use the genie ability because you can put them in the bag. The Tipo's ability to ink first. So you like put this on, you draw a card from this, and then you use the Tipo's ability to ink it. I think I said it backwards the first time,
No,
but
but you're so right though. That's so true. Yeah, that's true. What the heck? Yeah. So the genie, wonderful trickster, 7 cost, 4 strength, 7 willpower, shift for 5. When you play a card, draw a card. Very nice. Quest for 2, by the way. At the end of your turn, put all other cards in your hand on the bottom of your deck in any order. But yeah, that's a really cool interaction, being able to trigger the bag that way. Same thing, you can use this with Clarabelle. Assuming Clarabelle can trigger, meaning you're at the end of the turn, if your opponent has more cards in their hand, you can put Clarabelle and this genie in the bag and basically make it so that you pull genie out of the bag first, and then you pull Clarabelle out of the bag at the end, so you refill your hand, right? But Clarabelle has to be able to trigger, so you can't do that unless your opponent already has more cards than you at the end of the turn. One of my favorite things with this is that, like, the first time I read this, I'm like, okay, so that means I could just play this card, play draw, and then I could just play Snake and bounce it back, so I don't have to put away my cards. Is that what you're telling me? That seems kind of nice, right?
yeah, and get more value out of it.
Yeah, I think if you could play small genies aside from this, and be able to like flood genies bounces back with snakes so that you can shift it again next turn, that might be some potential right there. But it does feel a little cheesy sometimes. It does feel just a little cheesy. This is the location you were talking about earlier. This is the Sugar Rush Speedway location, the finish
A
line.
6 to move.
Yeah, it's a hefty move cost. It's going to be a 2 cost uninkable, 6 move cost, 7 willpower, which is kind of nice for a location. That's a 2 drop only. But it has a really strong ability. When one of your characters is moved from a location to this location, you may banish this location to gain 3 lore and draw 3 cards. Gaining 3 and drawing 3 in one ability is really strong, but you have to get rid of the location, right? But it's just whenever a character is moved here. So you're able to utilize stuff like you said, like Jim Hawkins, Tuck Tuck, and then just capitalize on this. Do you think this is going to be a real card though, or is this a little too specific?
It's tough to tell. I haven't made. I'm gonna try to break it. I think this is the type of card that if it's not broken now, eventually it will be.
Right?
And this is what we were talking about in all the previous spoiler seasons. It's like, yeah, a 1-cost action that moves one character or moves 2 characters to a location is worthless unless we have something like this.
Hmm. Hmm.
And in Magic, that was like Parhelion the second or something, and it was like some 9 cost card that like had a bunch to. It was an equipment, which is kind of like a location and an item mixed together. It's like you could pay stuff to move something to equip the item, but it was just like really hard to do all these things. But eventually, a card was printed that cheated it, right? And we had the cheat card before we had the payoff card, and this is the payoff. And so when this pays off, your opponents are not going to be happy. Like, not at all. Because
Yeah,
it's
dude.
gonna be unfair. Like if you're and your opponents are not gonna care if you're doing it the hard way, most likely.
Yeah, just seeing this with the sugar with the red location, Sugar Rush Speedway, that just clicked it already. I'm sure that's why they made it. Obviously, if you guys don't know what that does, it's a one cost uninkable location that says once per turn, you can exert a character here, deal 1 damage to it, and move it to another location for free. So the other Sugar Rush is uninkable as well. So you're probably playing a lot of uninkables, but you're able to move characters to this location for free. Could also use Jim Hawkins, like you were saying, Tuck Tuck, like you were saying, and you banish it and get rid of it, but you still draw 3 more. So there's a world where you just draw these like back to back, and you start gaining 3, 6, 9, even 12 lore if you get rid of 4 of this Sugar Rush location. I wonder if locations are going to be like that relevant next format, but it seems like they're starting to print locations that are good other than just castle and library, right? Poop Pirate Ship sounds very interesting, actually. This is a one cost uninkable item that says excerpt, pay 3 ink, return a pirate character from your discard to your hand. So I think this is potential. It's only a one cost item. It's just uninkable. My concern is the uninkability for this card.
Yeah. It's like a two of. I'm gonna start with the two of in a random pirate mid range deck. I think being able to like against the Ruby Sapphire deck, I'll get my Piglet back. Oh, you banished it? Okay, I'm gonna do it again and again and again and again. Like I'm gonna return my Smees, my Piglets against those decks. Against the aggressive decks, I'm gonna buy back my Hook. It's slow, but that's fine. And it's broken up quite nicely, so you can easily play it when you have 1 extra ink just laying over, and then you could play it on turn 4 with a 3 drop, and then on turn 5 activate it and replay your 2 drop Smee that had been challenged last turn, or you could challenge with the Smee or Hook and then return it and play it. I think it has a lot of areas to go, like turn 1 Hook, turn 2 Smee, turn 3 play this in a Smee, turn 4 challenge the Hook, buy it back, replay it, and now neither of your Smees get damaged. And that's not that unreasonable. It's not a great turn 4, but like if you have like 5 drops that you're trying to commit from there, or just play a very grindy game where they have to answer everything you do, like this could be backbreaking. It might also just be too slow.
Now, last card I want to go over today. This is the Sapphire action card called Prepare Your Bot. I think when this card came out, a lot of people were freaking out because the first thought was, I can ready my lucky dime. So choose,
Nice.
yeah. So choose one. Ready chosen item, ready chosen robot character. They can't quest for the rest of the turn. It's only a one cost action, by the way. How do you feel about this card?
In my mind, it greatly depends on how powerful robot characters are.
Mm.
Playing a deck, I assume like you have to be able to use both modes, I feel, to get full out of this. Unless there's a robot that has such an amazing activated ability that you want to use it twice, or is so powerful you want to devote a card to readying it so it can quest more than once. It's possible we get an item that exerts to make a character a robot till end of turn, or something like that, and then you could build your own combo with it, like make protect ward characters. Ugh. But I assume people are going to try to play 4 in these weird dime decks, and they're just going to realize that it's probably not good enough. It's at least inkable. I could see some people trying it as a 1 or a 2 of in some like weird case scenarios, but most of the dime decks I don't think have that many extra slots to devote to this type of card.
Okay, okay, that's good to hear because I'm over here thinking like, oh, this is the best deck of the format. Oh, Tamatoa, prepare your bot OTK. Sometimes when I play against like that Ruby Sapphire Queen deck, that deck already feels like an FTK deck or like an OTK deck. Like
Oh yeah.
they're not doing anything until like they have like four lore and then they slap one Tamatoa, play dime, and then they go to 18. And so that's why I'm kind of scared for this card because they could literally play like Exodia and just wait till they have all five pieces. Yes,
Yeah.
they'd be like, yes, I've acquired my Tamatoa, my dime, I prepare your bot, my ramp. Like you just need like a little.
So if the deck gains more card draw somehow than Flaversham,
Mhm.
and is always at like 8, 9 cards in hand no matter what, even through discard, I could see this as a two of because you have so many cards that it's okay to have a few slough. But you don't want four, but you're going to draw so many, you can afford to draw the one or two for the mirror matches that you need to be able to just win in a single turn because you're like, haha, like dime, activate, untap, activate, win, or ready. Yeah, it just seems good there.
Okay, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of potential in Azurite Sea. I think going over these cards has already got me cooking up in my brain a little bit, or just thinking about how I'm definitely gonna have to revamp my deck list next format. I don't think it's really gonna be the
Oh yeah.
same. I don't think we're gonna be like in the same cookie cutter format that people tend to kind of chalk it all up to, right? Because it does feel like we've been playing Emerald Steel, Ruby Amethyst, and Ruby Sapphire for the last like two formats, right? And
Yeah.
things did change a lot this format with the recent set of Shimmering Skies. There's a lot more variance in the meta, which I love to see. But we're getting a lot of power cards. Out of all the cards that you've seen so far, what's like the number one that's standing out to you that you want to try?
See, you ask the question, my mind goes blank immediately, but probably the Sugar Rush Speedway.
Okay.
So as you were kind of saying, is like, yeah, the format gets stale. I think that just has to do with the amount of cards.
Hmm.
So you can only play two ink colors, and they've done a pretty good job of sprinkling cards from each archetype in all the ink colors. That way, currently it gives the illusion that you can play any of these combinations with this type of deck. Uh, but realistically, there's not enough cards out yet. So each of these sets brings us closer and closer. So it's like now everyone's like, is this the set that makes Pirates a thing? And then we find out that when they talked about multiple sets ago that Pirates was the best deck in their league, they misspoke because their league was a future league and they were using cards from this set. And that's why so like if now we get to see were they right? Is Pirates like going to be like this deck that's crushing? Is it going to be a contender? And like Pooh Pirate Ship is a reusable like source. All the decks that are crushing in the last few sets might just be completely different based on one or two cards. Like just think about how Ursula warped the format. Like just hitting songs, like all of a sudden you have to completely change how you build your deck. Medusas and brawls, you know, like those drastically change things. But as more and more archetypes get made, that'll change.
Oh yeah, makes sense. And I think we're gonna see a lot of different 60 card lists in the future now that we're having all these different like archetypes and strategies being introduced to all these different colors. And yeah, it's like you said, like right now we kind of do have an illusion that you can play every color together, but as we get more and more cards per set, we really are gonna start seeing just brand new strategies. And I almost even want to say that sometimes I feel like we don't have enough time for this format because there's so many different decks in the top cut of DLC Seattle, dude. Stuff that none of us ever
Oh
thought
yeah.
we'd see in the top cut of a DLC. So it does feel like we haven't even completely explored the entire Shimmering Skies format. And we're already getting close to Azurite Sea. So I don't have any expectations. I feel like I'm not gonna be surprised when if I see like some crazy microbot deck, like running around in the format, just because there's some crazy strategies and there's some crazy players in this game that really know how to utilize those strategies, man. So once again, guys, I want to give a huge shout out to Luke Wonderland Goodman for helping us with this video and going over some of these set six Azurite Sea cards. Luke, is there anything you want to say before we call it a day today?
There's so many people I need to shout out and so many things. probably going to forget half of them. Check out my Twitch channel, Wonderland, that you can see the ICLs get streamed there before we eventually will be transferring to a new channel that's just for the ICL League. And that'll be happening in a few weeks to a few months, depending. Shout outs to Team Lab. Obviously, I wouldn't be here right now without them. Same with the people who watch me on the day to day, the work at home people who enjoy listening to me make play mistakes on stream all day. You're the real heroes right there.
Yeah, if you want to watch Wonderland dominate the Pixelborn ladder, or even just stream in general his Lorcana experience, be sure to check out his Twitch channel. You stream Monday through Friday, if I'm not mistaken.
If everything goes well, I stream from 10 a.m. to 2:30 Central. Sometimes I'm lazy and I don't do that, but I try to.
You do a lot. You do a lot. You deserve a break, man. Once again, like you guys gotta watch his stream. Super helpful. One of the few streamers that puts a hand cam as well. So
Thank you.
yeah, being able to like, and I need to stress this enough because Lorcana is a hard game. Lorcana is a hard game, and I feel like if I don't practice enough, I start to fall off. So watching people like you, bro, it helps so much, especially when I can see what you're inking, because I think the inking process in this game is super important. So whenever I'm like watching your stream and I'm like, okay, he's gonna ink this card, and you don't do it, I'm like, oh, do I suck? Like, what did I, like I'm like, oh my gosh, that's not. I'm learning.
Nope, it's me. It's me.
No, sometimes we're limit testing too. I don't know about you, but I feel like when I'm practicing online, I do practice plays I wouldn't normally do in person. And when I'm in big tournaments, something changes, and I'm like, you know what? Like this is the decision I'm gonna make. I think that happens to a lot of people too. You get locked in when you're in a tournament, and maybe we're on stream, we are limit testing. But either way, great streams, great content creator, my goons. You guys definitely need to follow this DLC champion if you want to change up your game as well. Be sure to follow all of Team Lab, join their Discord, and really get to know Luke Wonderland over here. Once again, thank you so much, Luke. Congrats on achieving your first place. Super deserved. Can't wait to see you in Continentals. Can't wait to see what else you do in your Lorcana journey, because I know this is not your one and only championship, man.
I don't know how to do. There's so many ways to do the hearts, and this one looks best from me. But when I look in the reflection, I'm like, oh, it looks like a tomato, kind of.
It looks good, man. It looks perfect. Thanks again for showing love. Anything you want to say before we call it a day?
Tons of things, but I don't know. Thanks for watching.
Thanks again, my Lorcana goons. If you like this content, like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you goons next time.